opportunities in my classroom. As I said the other night, I'm a teacher, and one of the classes I teach is called Teacher Cadet, and it's basically introduction to education for high school seniors. They get the opportunity to see what it's like to be a teacher, they do some field experience. It's a really neat class that I teach. A couple of years ago, I got the brilliant idea, I can see it, you're good. I got the brilliant idea to talk a little bit about education technology and how it has changed. Oh, cool, thank you. So, I was shortly, it was before, I think it was before I even came to KansasFest the first time. And so I decided that it would be fun to take my apples into my classroom and expose my students to what it was like when I was a kid. So I did. This coming year will be the third year I've done this. I take the metal in and I set that up in my room, and then I do put up some big classes, so I do put up some emulators as well. And they play Odell Lake, and they play Oregon Trail, and they play Microzine, and they play Operation Frog and Carmen Sandiego, and they get very confused because there's no directions, and the mouse doesn't track properly, and it's hard. And it's fun for me. It's fun for them, but it's more fun for me because I'm sitting in the back going, but that's not the best part. The best part is what I've learned from them. And the fact that they are perceptive enough to see, because of course being a teacher, you can't just play games all day in class. There has to be a worksheet that goes with it. The worksheet is a reflection. And it's things like, what did you like, what did you not like? Do you think these are still relevant? Could you still use them in the classroom? And the answer, and I really hope they weren't just trying to suck up to me. They might have been. But some of them said, yeah, these could be useful. The idea that there's no internet connection on these computers to distract you. It's a lot easier. You always know the kids are on task. There's no ads. There were a lot of things that came back that the kids thought was very positive. There's negatives too. The kids are like, this is boring. They're stupid. I'm like, this is what it was like. But it was really cool for me just to see these. I think they really appreciated what they have. If you have been in a modern classroom recently, you walk into my room, and I'm in the home economics suite. You walk in, smartboard, projector, 10 computers, Wi-Fi, open Wi-Fi, bring your own technology. These kids, we're supposed to use their phones. We're supposed to use websites like Kahoot and websites like Kahoot's the one that the kids all like use the phones as clickers and whatnot. And they take this for granted. And it's really nice to give them a taste of, you shouldn't take this for granted. Because I was like, guys, this is what it was like. It was the dark ages. There was no spell checker on the word processor. You would print out your paper and find all your mistakes. And they're looking at me like, no, the mouse did not track. No, the game did not come with, it was not on a website with little directions and then click here to start. They were playing Carmen Sandiego, and I'm like, did you guys look for clues? They're like, no, we just started going places. And that's kind of part of it too, is you realize that it's a very different vibe. Modern educational games have a very different vibe than what we grew up with, and it's good for them to see. So fun for me, fun for them, mostly fun for me. Fun for my colleagues, because I get flex the nerd cred. And so, but it's fun. So I am still using them in the classroom, and I'm looking forward to exposing them to the Apple IIc I just got with the green screen. There's no color!
There's one color.
Brain explodes. All right, thanks.
Sabbath. Last year, my Hatfest entry was Caverns of KFest, and it won. Do you want to know what happened with that in the last year since? Thank you. You want to know what happened with Caverns of KFest in the last year since at one, or do you want to know how to physically clean a floppy disk that's so dirty but you have to archive it because it has super raw source code on it? Which do you want? Who wants Caverns of KFest? Who wants to know how to clean a floppy?
Talk about how to clean a floppy of Caverns of KFest.
All right, so last year at Caverns of KFest, and it was fun. It was my first assembly language program, and that was awesome. I could not figure out in the time allotted. I was getting tired and punchy, and I was just really scared to screw something up. I could not figure out how to make score appear on the screen, and I figured that out with articles and help afterwards. Come on, baby. So, something else. That's another thing. So, a version that came out a few days after KansasFest, and basically what this did was adding the score and depth display at the bottom. So this was the game. This is the game as it won plus score. So this is how it looks on Apple II, and I don't have sound hooked up, but basically it goes deep when you touch a thing, and that isn't that fun. So there's that. And then I kind of had said it on a podcast or something that I wanted to do an Atari version, and then I didn't do it. A few months had passed, and this guy named Peter Dell, who's an Atari guy, he came to me and was just like, okay, we're doing this now. You got time today? I'm just like, not really. He's just like, you're doing this now. So he showed me how to convert it to the Atari, and so this is Caverns of KFest, the Atari version. The Atari 8-bit, 800 or whatever. So this is really the same code. I'm trying to joystick here. Anyway, so this is the same code running. Anyway, there we go. Just kind of converted to work on the Atari, and it's got custom graphic for the ship, and the sound still is just as dumb, and it's got the scrolly thing, and the colors are a little better because we have more colors to choose from. But it's basically the same game, and yay. Cool. And then every year I take part in a 10-line basic programming contest, and so I created a version of Caverns of KFest. I ported it into BASIC for the Atari. Took my first assembly language thing and turned it to BASIC, and created a program called Descend. And the rules are a little different. You can't choose to go down. It forces you down every once in a while to make the game harder. But this one has even more custom graphics. And so that's Descend. And this came in second place in the basic contest for programs that were 80 characters or less per line. So anyway, did this in 10 lines of BASIC on the Atari. Let's see you do that on your Apple IIs.
Challenge accepted.
Great. Anyway, that's it. That's what I want to show you. Very nice. Can I? What?
Okay, I'm here to talk to you about a problem I had with Juice.js and how I solved it and how I can solve that same problem for you. The problem is URLs in print. If this was a web page, this would be easy for you to use. You would just click on that URL, you would go to that page. Not so easy when it's a print magazine. You expect somebody to sit down with the magazine and type in that long string, which is the latest episode of Open Apple. It could be even worse though. It could be that the URL is that. And this is an actual situation we had earlier this year, where I want the link to Chris Torrance's video, his Assembly Lines podcast. It's a YouTube URL. It's watch != TABXXMPNTY0 ampersand index, etc. And it's all case sensitive. I can't put that in a print magazine because I have limited space, and my readers have limited patience. They're not going to type that in. So what I've been doing is using Snip URL, which is a URL shortener. It allows me to create a custom URL, snipurl.com/ap40, which is the product Chris was reviewing. And I did that for many issues of Juice.js. So now I can just type in snipurl.com/ap40. The only problem is that about 6 months ago, Snip URL began migrating to a new server, and they never finished. So all of those URLs that I put in Juice.js over the years are now broken. They don't work anymore. Now, there are a lot of other URL shorteners I could use, like Bitly. Of course, Bitly is very well known. And it even has an Apple IIGS CDA, where you can make Bitly short URLs right from GSOS. But there are still problems even with Bitly. For example, bit.ly stands for Libya. Not the most stable part of the world. What happens if Libya goes away? Well, actually, the answer to that is a little bit more complicated than I am fear-mongering you to believe. But nonetheless, the case remains that URL shorteners may be one of the worst ideas, one of the most backward ideas to come out of the last 5 years. If we lose tinyURL or Bitly, millions of weblogs, essays, and non-archived tweets lose their meaning instantly. This is a quote from a very well-known archivist, Mr. Jason Scott, March 30th, 2011. And he is very correct, because whether you're using Bitly, Snip URL, tinyURL, the Twitter shortener, Google shortener, they all have the same shortcomings, the same dangers, dependent on existence of a third party. If that website goes away, Snip URL went away, all of those links break. All your short URLs will reside in an external database that you don't have access to. You can't back it up, you can't export it, and then import it somewhere else. Those URLs belong to Bitly, Snip URL, whatever. Competes with other users for unique URLs. I can't go make bit.ly/ap40 for Chris because somebody else already made that URL. It's taken. I'm competing with the millions of users who use Bitly for those short URLs, and somebody else is already squatting on it. And you can't change where those URLs are pointing to. What if Chris moves his podcast and I want to update that short URL to keep my print magazine that is not changing because it got published 3 years ago current, modern, accurate? I can't, because you can't update or change where a Bitly URL points to. Sometimes it's blocked by filters. I found out that I can't text my partner a Bitly link because it won't show up at all. She thought I was mad at her and not talking to her. And I was sending her links, and finally she emailed me like, Ken, we have to start talking again. I'm like, I've been talking to you all day. What are you talking about? Bitly is so well known that sometimes it gets filtered. And finally, it's not unique to your brand. There's nothing about bit.ly that says Juice.js or Apple II. So I asked Mr. Martin Hay to find me a domain name that is unique to Juice.js and does say Apple II. And he found something that we can use, which is a2.click. So that's what appeared in Juice.js with a2.click/ap40. Now Martin found the domain name, and I was wondering, what can we do with this besides just use it with Juice.js? And Eric Shepard suggested, why don't we make it available to everybody? And then Kelvin Sherlock wrote some code for me, and the result is a2.click, which is a new website that anybody can use. Let me show you, for example. Let's see, here we go. A2. A2Click, great. So I punched in the latest URL for OpenApple. I type OA72. I click shorten, and there, a2.click/OA42. Any Apple II user can use this. That's great. Or what if you go here and people will do this? I want to shorten Pornhub.com to porn. A2.click/porn.
I was the first one to test that.
This domain is not on the whitelist. There's a whitelist. You have to be a verified Apple II website for your URLs to be shortened. And there's a link to submit your URL, and that is A2Click with 1 second to spare.
Wow. All right. Next up is Martin Hay, and you guys are going to have to keep it notes. Okay, very brief Lawless Legends update. You're probably wondering what the heck we're doing. The 3D rendering engine that I demoed a few years ago, you know, it's kind of like, for me, it's like making candy. It's fun, it's delicious, you eat all you can possibly eat. This year has been all about eating our vegetables. We have been doing inventory management. We have been doing a very in-depth combat system. We have been doing character creation. We have got gender in there. We've got, we're just checking off the boxes. These are all the things you need in an actual, fully fleshed out adventure game. So that's what we do. It's getting pretty close. We are ready to have a small cadre of beta testers. And so I'm hoping to emerge from KFest with 5 people who are interested in playing a game that is broken in very many ways and telling us, being really communicative online on Trello, telling us all the things that are broken and working with us to fix those things. Oh, I'm doing great. So that, we're shooting to release sometime this coming year. I think we're going to get there. So we're really excited. If you're interested in being a beta tester, please approach me. I can't promise you very much in the way of rewards, except when the game comes out, we will get you whatever the fanciest version of it is that it comes out. Okay? That's my talk. Okay, we're doing great. Mike Goodell. Did I pronounce that right?
Goodell, Mike Goodell.
Goodell.
There's an idea for a lightning talk. Stand-up comedy. 5 minutes or less.
Okay, my topic today is AppleSoft Basic. As you know, the AppleSoft Basic was first introduced with the Apple II 40 years ago, introduced at the birthday today. Yes, I read Steve Weinrich's book. And so I already preloaded Star Trek into Apple Wind Emulator here, and it kind of took me back to when I was writing programs 30 years ago, how it really was. Remember back in the day, you type list. I was on the Apple II Plus, you only do things 40 columns at a time. And then remember, if you're going to edit a line, you have to just type in the whole line or just use funny escape sequences to make changes to that line. It's just very cumbersome. And then in today's world, as you know, we all have the full screen editors and that kind of stuff. And so what I wanted to create was just a really easy way to take some of my old programs I wrote, bring them into a modern editor of your choice. You can use whatever you like. And so I'm going to show you that right now. It's just a working demo of the program. So Apple Tools program here. And a feature where first I started with doing a hex dump, and I'm going to also do a detokenize, where I'm detokenizing the AppleSoft Basic to the program. First I'm going to show you the hex dump, because I realized it's kind of reverse engineering. I don't know if anyone else has created anything like this, and so it's just something I was doing on my own. And so I'm sure someone will speak up if they did. And so I'm just using the editor of my choice. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. And first I'm going to look at the hex dump of the program. And most AppleSoft programs, as you may already know, starts at hex 801. And so I wanted to create a custom version of the hex dump so it's readable, because I was trying to decipher how the AppleSoft tokens work, so it's just kind of a learning process as I go. And basically I made it so the hex dump goes way longer than 16 characters, so that's one whole AppleSoft line, and then I have the decode of the program. And so as I figured out how to do that, then the next step was I wanted to now bring it into a regular source file that I could work with. So that is this right here. So this is that program that I just brought over from Apple Wind into my editor. And so now I can go through and I can make changes to the program, whatever I like. And so now I can actually look at my program and look at it as a whole. I blew up the screen so you can see the text normally is not that big, but I blew it up so you guys can see. And so that's great. So the next step is, what if I want to write stuff back to Apple Wind instantly? So the program I loaded was Star Trek. It was originally ported from a mainframe in 1974, or it was written on the mainframe in 74, and then it was ported to AppleSoft in 1980. And so this is that program right here. So let's just make a quick change. I did some code beautifying where I made it so that the line numbers line up nicely and that kind of stuff. But let's just make a quick change here. This little animation actually draws the Enterprise, but let's make a change. Yeah, let's just say, make it KansasFest. And since we're not yet in the future, we're gonna make it 2017, even though that's really not the year, but that's what we're gonna do. And then let's also have some fun, and then we'll change some other things too. And let's change the aliens from Klingons to maybe something more sinister, the Carringtons. And we'll say replace all, so there I'm using replace all in my Applesauce program. And then, so basically it's a full screen editor. I do all the parsing, so you can format the lines however you like. It'll fix it all in the end, so I don't have time to show you everything. So I'm gonna quick save that program. I'm gonna flip back to my program that actually does the magic. Then I'm gonna click this button. You probably can't read in the bottom where it says tokenize. That sent it back to AppleWin. So now when I flip back to AppleWin, and then if I say run, there's the program I changed. Let's see if my alien race got changed to the Carringtons. It's slow, it's Applesauce. I'm just gonna leave. And I'm just gonna leave the game real quick. Oh, there's the map where the Carrington ships are, you know, we must destroy all. Sorry, type ahead. And then leave the program. So there's also reverse too. Now that I have a way to bring a lot of my emulators just right in there, I thought it'd be nice if I could just drag and drop programs right in. And so I'll do that. I'll just do a browse. And then I'm getting real close. And this is just Networks BBS. And I'll load that. Tokenize. And then AppleWin. Now if I do list.
Okay, next we have Robert Willett. No, Charles Mangan.
I've got it on my laptop right now.
Okay, great.
I thought I was going right after you, so.
No, it's fine. This is easy.
HTML. All right, so this is what it looks like when you open up the hex dump of an EDD file. It's a bunch of bytes. And what can you do with a bunch of bytes? Well, you can convert it back into a disk. You can crack it. You can do a bunch of other stuff with it. Woo! Or you can run a little image magic, which is not my invention. It's something that's actually out there in the world on Linux and Mac, and there's probably a version for Windows. I haven't used it yet. And convert those bytes, actually in this case, bits of 1-bit depth into a bitmap. So this is the visual representation of the bits of that EDD file. And it's really wide in squish, and it actually goes well to the other side of the building because this is several thousand pixels wide. So what I can do from there is with, you zoom in, you actually see the bits of the quarter tracks here, tick, 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 tick. And then there's a bunch of nothing in this disk image, and then there's more data, and then nothing, and you can see the actual bytes separated by sync bits, et cetera, et cetera. Mark actually knows what this is. You can read this from back there, can't you? Okay. And from there, I'll take that really long skinny image and convert it around a circle and give you a visual representation of the disk and the bits that are on the disk from that EDD. This is made a little irrelevant by what John Morris showed off with applesauce, but he was he didn't have that graphical progress meter running when he started, probably the start of this week, when I was putting this together. So this is an image from Choplifter. So you can see the spiraling tracks here, and you can see where it makes that sort of signature noise of loading Choplifter in, and you can zoom in all the way, and you can see the actual bits kind of going around the circle, a little bit of a moire pattern, and I just think this is pretty cool. So there's a little bit of noise in amongst the zeros, and you can see the bits going back and forth between ones and zeros, a bunch of ones, a bunch of zeros, a bunch of ones. And if you want to get a little trippy, you can rotate it each time and see how it compares to other disk images. This is the DOS 3.3 master disk. So it has well delineated sectors, but they're not synchronized at all. You can see the I guess prologue and epilogue for each of the sectors, and it's on nice whole tracks instead of quarter tracks. This is Frogger. This is a Spire disk, so you can see where it got the name Spire disk, and the areas of no data are where the disk head or the drive head is supposed to skip to the next quarter track as it's going in and loading, and it's read, skip, read, skip, read, skip, read, skip, and then back to the beginning, and it's going around in that spiral to load Frogger. This is Hard Hat Mac, which again, because of the synchronization from applesauce, you can see that there's a really clean line here, unlike the DOS master disk, where each sector is synchronized with the ones above it and below it, so that when it loads in, they can tell that this is an original disk, presumably by the timing. And this is Karateka or Karateka. We'll take a vote on whether it's pronounced correctly or not. And you can see that it's a totally different structure altogether. There's no tracks and sectors. There's no prologues and epilogues and delineation between one sector and the next. There's data and then a bunch of nothing, and then a whole bunch of data to load in the game. So that's it. Thank you. Pretty pictures out of it.
What's on your shirt?
Choplifter's on my shirt.
Getting ideas, Dave?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Charles.
Thank you.
Rob McMullen.
Thanks, Mike.
There we go. All right. Oh, grab your mic.
All right, so this is Omnivore. Charles Megan used it earlier. It's cool to see it being used by people. You know, I should have spent like $100 on an Item Pro disassembly license, but I'd rather spend 18 months writing my own stuff. So I spent a lot of the work on the disassembler. So now, disassembler is now written in C, so it's super fast. I disassembled the entire thing now. And it also it knows any jump targets or any load or store instruction. It'll automatically create a label for it. You can export all this to this assembly file, and it supports multiple assemblers. Merlin's probably the one that Apple folks would be interested in. The other thing it does is I have a static tracing disassembler, which means it knows enough about the assembly language to know what a jump is, what a branch is. Turn on. So if you have a bit of unknown code, turn on the tracer, find the start of some code block. Let's see what break. All right, so let's. So start here. It jumps through all the stuff that it can find that's code and marks as code now. And so it knows enough about like a regular instruction just goes to the next instruction. A jump goes somewhere else. A branch could go somewhere else, or it could fall, so it's got a branching path that follows both paths. And a subroutine jumps somewhere else, but could possibly return. So it also creates two paths and explores these individually. And then you just keep marching down code, the code path. And then look somewhere else. Funny thing. Eventually, yeah, like it located that piece that I wasn't on the screen at all. So I've just done a lot of work. If anybody like to use it,
Jeff Weiss.
Hello, good evening.
Wait, you're not looking.
Oh,
5 minutes has to start.
all right. Good evening.
Hey. Good evening.
Hey. So, have you wanted to take a sound file from a modern computer, take it off to the 2GS, create a brand new R sound?
Absolutely.
I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. It's going to be a cross-platform solution. We're going to convert sounds to the 2GS. It can be done from Windows, Macintosh, Linux, Solaris, or pretty much any other modern operating system. And because what I have, we'll be doing from Solaris. So the conversion will be done on the modern computer. It will use the program called SOX, SOX, stands for Sound Exchange. It has tons and tons of features. I should also let you know that there is a presentation on the KansasFest website for those who want to look at what's going on. It has all the instructions. And this is just a completely side way of doing all the same stuff as well. Some of the supported formats include RAW, AIFF, OGG, AU, WAV, Opus, and a bunch more. MP3 is a format that some versions of SOX may support or may not. But if you don't have MP3 support, oops, press 17. So don't have MP3 support, then you can use Lane, which is a decoder. So we will convert this MP3 file to a WAV file. Okay, converted. Then we will use SOX to convert this. It needs to be converted for the 2GS format. It needs to be converted to an 8-bit unsigned single channel, which means no stereo,
raw file that is either 22 kilohertz or 11 kilohertz. Technically, the 2GIS can handle more of virtually any frequency, but would use a relatively standard 22K or 11K. So that's the wave. So you put in the source file. C1 is channel 1. R is the frequency bit rate. In hertz, we're going to use 8-bit. Encoding. Spell that wrong? Thank you. Encoding. Slide. And the output will be a raw file. All right, that converted. So I'm going to go into kegs, where I have 2Pro for getting files into kegs, to a disk image. You can, of course, use other tools available to get to a real 2GS. No emulator is needed for any of this. All right, that's converted. Let's bring up kegs. Get it over to the computer here, to the screen. So let's look at audio zap to look at the file. Different audio programs with the 2GS will handle frequencies in different ways, so we'll look at both ways. So as you remember, I set this to a 22K file, 22 hertz. So let's load, type. It?
Just kind of looked like there was errors.
Okay, pay attention to. Start the raw file. Set CD. Kegs. Kegs, CD. Then.
So the slash.
Yep, I do the slash.
There it goes.
Instead of skipping AudioZap, AudioZap doesn't use frequencies, it uses a different format, so it uses 429.
You got 7.
Yep, 7. Now we open up the file. Running slow. 2200. And make sure they can save, play, and have to turn the volume on. I suck with that.
Should we keep clapping?
Okay, next up is Tony Diaz. Tony here.
Yep.
You don't need to read it. Okay. I'm going to give you a microphone.
All right. Timer right in front of me. Yep.
No pressure.
No pressure, no. I just like to I'm Tony Diaz, and I'm usually active like the last few weeks to months or years, maybe I haven't been realized much, but kind of get back into things again here. Things that comes to clear to me is it's really cool how much new activity and interest has come along in the Apple II, but I like to look at things as a lot of things aren't necessarily new. We have, how am I
I trying to get? That word isn't working. We're always inventing new ways to do things. That's not to say we'll never figure out something new anymore, but in maybe some of your eras, your experimentation was in the form of a big box of parts that they'd mail you, and you put it together and you turn it on and it makes some noise and you'd be really happy. And now we put all kinds of little pieces together and it makes many noises at one time and we're all really happy. And so if you look back at the, I'd like to take a look at the apple pie today, at the Raspberry Pi today, and look at the Apple IIe of the 1980s. They're both very similar. They both brought creativity out of people and solutions to problems. They both provided a platform for solutions to problems. Look at the Apple IIe, 8 slots, a keyboard interface, a video output. Turn it on, you can start using it right now. You can even make it do things. You can interact with it. You can hook up I/O switches to it, have it toggle things on and off. You can do that with the Raspberry Pi as well. Look at the size difference. How many of those can you fit in one Apple IIe? In fact, I think there's a card that puts them in there, isn't there? You might put 7 in there and have a parallel processing nightmare. But for a while, when I was growing up, probably high school and after era, it seemed like maybe this was the end because the computers were becoming closed. And it was all about making a device that did a function rather than a device you could make do many. And I just think it's really cool that things like the maker fairs and whatnot, I'm seeing kids solder again, seeing people break out stuff, and even Radio Shack, of course, look where it got them. But if they had gotten into this much earlier, they had a really, really good selection of maker scene type things, with 3D printing and Raspberry Pi and other type of microcontrollers. Imagine if they only had that a few years earlier, where it could have been picked up on, because the other part of the problem is getting it to the masses. So with now kids learning, wanting to do all that stuff again, it's even more cool to see them take the new, and let's go back to the old and say, let's see if we can make the old do the same thing. Let's see if we can make them work together. And all the creativity really comes out of it. With that, I think I have covered what I want.
Okay, next is Ken, number 2. He didn't wait for a while to make sure that nobody else was signing up for his slot before he signed up for a second slot.
I was just thinking up where the last one left off, 10-minute talk. No, I'm kidding.
You're kidding.
I am kidding.
You can have an extra bit.
And if I was to render my time to
How much you selling for? What's your time worth, literally? The problem of Apple II news sources is something that I've solved for myself, and I hope I'll solve for you as well. I'm the editor of JuiceGS, which is a quarterly print publication. When you have 3 months to put together an issue, that means you have a lot of time to think about in-depth features, news, and reviews, or not the news part, because news is not easy to do timely when you're coming out every 3 months. Nonetheless, we do have some news. It's called dumplings. And it's little paragraphs, little bite-sized morsels of news from the Apple II world that I curate from various online sources. In the last 2 years, this page of JuiceGS has gotten a lot harder to produce because 3 things that I used to depend upon started working less well than they used to. Those 3 things. One is a2central.com, a fantastic website that's been around for 17 years. This past September, the main contributor to this site and the owner of the site, Sean Fahey, posted that he was himself going on hiatus to focus on other things. There are still contributors to the site, but there are not as frequent updates as before, so I have less information to draw from for dumplings. Problem number 2, Yahoo Pipes. For the last 6 years, I've been curating a private list of over 100 RSS feeds for Apple II websites. And then I would put them all into a Yahoo pipe, which was a tool that allowed me to subscribe to just one RSS feed instead of 100. And I would share that RSS URL with some of my friends and colleagues. But Yahoo Pipes, September 30th, 2015, shut down. And now I have 100 plus RSS feeds that I don't know what to do with. Problem number 3, Kevin Sabbaths.
Enough said.
So Kevin has been running this website called Retro Roundup. It's basically an RSS aggregator where you click on the headlines of these different news sources. It's sorted by source, and it takes you back to that website. In fact, it was through this website that I first met Kevin. Back in 2008, I emailed him and said, could you please add the KansasFest RSS feed to your website? And he wrote back and said, sure. However, this website is built on decades-old plus technology. It takes a long time to load, and I wasn't sure how often Kevin was paying attention to it. So, solution. Without knowing any of these things were running through my head, Kevin emailed me this past January and said, do you want Retro Roundup? You're the only person who's ever mentioned it to me, so maybe you can make it better. So I said yes. So I thought, great, now I have an opportunity to put all these RSS feeds into one place. I will tear down the old technology, replace it with new stuff, and I built a brand new Retro Roundup, which I'm here to show you today.
Yay.
So this website is available now at retroroundup.com. It's very similar to Kevin's. It uses a variety of sources, but now you get the thumbnail, the headline, and the first 100 words. How do I turn off the voice? Whatever. All right, so the page is a little bit yellow. That's my problem. Anyway, so, however, instead of sorting it by source, it's sorted by topic and content type. So, for example, computers, Apple II, Atari, Commodore, Mac, Tandy. Games, both arcade and console. Format, conventions, blogs, news, podcasts, vendors, videos. You can go to any one of those categories and get just that kind of news. However, these checkboxes on the side allow you to find the intersection of those news. So for example, let's say I want to find all the news from podcasts, all the different podcast updates. Great, a lot of different podcasts on here. What if I want to find just the podcasts that are about games? Well, here are just those. It dynamically updates in real time without refreshing the page. Here are all the game podcasts. What if I want to go even more granular? Commodore. Here are all the podcasts about Commodore games. So you can find that news source. And here's one that was updated just a month or two ago. So you can find all these news sources that you're not familiar with before. When you find one you want to go to, you just click on the headline, opens it up in a new tab at the original source page. So it leads you to these places. That's not a good example. That was working not too long ago. So, all right, here we go. So that would open up on the YouTube page to watch that video, for example, or etc. However, the neat thing is that you can, in this search box right here, like let's say I type in Persia, and so it's going to bring up all the things that have Prince of Persia in the headline or in the first 100 words, or in the entirety of the original post. So for example, let's see, where is, right here. So this post right here does not have the word Persia in the headline or the body, but you click on it and it's still in that original source. You can also, if you want to see what sources I'm pulling from, here they are and how they're categorized. You can submit your own for consideration. Each category has its own RSS feed, and you can also get all these updates available through email. So if you don't use RSS, like most people don't, you can get email updates. And that is retroroundup.com with 1 second to spare.
Go for 3.
I donate my remaining seconds to the next person.
Eric Drucker, you have 1 extra.
Leave your laptop
Oh,
up.
right, sorry. I should not be going anywhere with this.
Wah, wah.
Sorry about that.
You can use either one, as long as it's on. Oh, yes, definitely.
Yes.
You want to open my preview or do we after that? Matter?
HP 41 CD forever.
Hello, I'm Eric Rucker. This is my 6th KansasFest and my first presentation, and it's on early Hewlett-Packard scientific calculators. What does this have to do with the Apple II? Well, laws, as you can see. He worked at HP from 1973 to 1976, working on these calculators at the same time as working on the Apple I and Apple II. And he also cited several of the early scientific calculators that HP made as influencing the Apple II's design. So, HP calculators use reverse Polish notation. So here's a reverse Polish sausage that I stole from XKCD. If you're not familiar with RPN, check the links at the end, and then I've also just emailed off to the KansasFest mailing list. So the first calculator we're going to cover is the Hewlett-Packard 9100A, which is their first scientific calculator. It's a desktop machine. If you're familiar with RPN, it uses an early 3-level RPN rather than the 4-level you're used to. It's programmable, saving to magnetic cards. It has I/O capability supporting a printer, a plotter, a marked card reader, and extra RAM. And it led to both the handheld calculators I'm going to talk about next, as well as industrial controllers and desktop computers. It sold for $4,900 in 1968. Next up is the HP 35 from 1972. It's the first handheld scientific calculator, electronic scientific calculator. Bill Hewlett wanted a shirt pocket size 9100A. He didn't get it. No programmability or input and output other than the keyboard and screen, but it's quite successful anyway. It had 4-level RPM and basically worked like the later calculators, and it sold for $395. Next up is the HP 45. It's an enhanced HP 35 with more inbuilt functions, multiple storage registers, display formatting options, and tweaks to make it easier to use. Also for $395, the 35 was reduced in price. The 65 is a programmable calculator, so that's one feature from the 9100A that this now adds. It has even more inbuilt functions. It has a magnetic card, reader, and writer. And it had a large software library, and there was a user group, the HP 65 Users Club, which later became the Personal Programming Center that formed around it. Still didn't have any I/O other than what was inbuilt on there. And it sold for $795. Next up is the HP 55. It's a lower cost programmable, more inbuilt functions than the 45. It also had a crystal-driven timer. No ability to save programs though. Shut it off, it's gone. $395, and the 45 dropped in price when this came out. Next we have the 67, which is an enhanced version of the 65 using a 2nd generation chipset, commonly known as the Woodstock chipset. It has an improved programming model that needs less memory for your programs. And it was $450. So, nice big drop in price. So this is the last model that was mentioned as inspiring the Apple II. Then we'll look at the HP 41C, which was the replacement for the 67. Depending on how you count, it's either 3rd or 4th generation hardware. It has an alphanumeric LCD, so it can tell you what a command or an error is, rather than just giving you a number that you have to look up in the manual. No more magnetic card reader, as you can see. But it has continuous memory, so you can turn the calculator off, turn it back on, your programs are right there. Also, it has 4 expansion slots. I have 2 covers removed. You can install a magnetic card reader, install memory expansions, connect a printer, and there's an HPIL interface that you can connect to plotters, disks, video interfaces, serial interfaces, a lot of things. The calculator itself was $295, and this was your handheld 9100A in 1979. I have some links for more info. hpmuseum.org. That's where there's more in-depth info on all these, and that's where I got all those calculator photos. They also have a great primer on RPN. This site here has a lot of info on the chipset on the earlier calculator that I was talking about. There's an emulator. This site has a lot of information on this calculator. And there's a conference in September in Tennessee. I have no affiliation with that conference, but I might be going. And thank you.
All right. Next up is Ivan X.
Okay.
Hello, KansasFest. It's good to see all of you. I just want to say that it's been super fantastic that there are so many new people here this year. I want to thank you for coming, and I hope you come every year, which is what several of us did when we started coming a few years ago. And it's more excellent because of that. Okay, so first of all, these are my slides. Didn't want to mess with technology or anything. I am Ivan. I'm Ivan Drucker, sometimes Ivan X, and I am a Mac consultant by day and Apple II sometimes software developer at KansasFest. I wanted to give you a quick update on a couple of my projects and tell you about something new that I'm into. So first of all, nothing has changed with any of these, but for those of you who don't know, I have 3 AppleSoft utilities for AppleSoft programmers. Slammer lets you elegantly include machine language in your AppleSoft program listings. New Input is much more awesome input than AppleSoft's input. And Magic GoTo allows you to go to and go sub by label rather than by line number. None of those have changed, and nor are they going to unless somebody else changes them, but you might want to know about it. These are all available at my not well-maintained website, ivanx.com. Okay, what I've been working for on the last many years is projects for the Raspberry Pi, A2 server, it's a file server for the Apple II. It turns out that I released a version that was compatible with the current Raspberry Pis and had new features like a year ago, and I just didn't tell anybody. So I am, and it actually has some good stuff on it, like you can get on the internet without, you can, in GSOS without an Ethernet card. And it has proper case insensitivity, which was always a problem in previous versions. It works on all the current Raspberry Pis. What's on the website still doesn't, because the website is out of date, but hopefully it will not be by the time I leave KansasFest. Also, there's a cool command line utility called CPPO that copies files out of a ProDOS image. It can preserve resource forks, and now it can also work with shrinked archives and disk images. So those are cool enhancements to A2 server. A2 Cloud doesn't do anything new, but except to be compatible with with all current Pis. Raspberry 2, it will probably go away, and you will need to install each of these individually. Okay, there's a Mac utility I have called PiFiller. There will be a new version of that by the end of KansasFest. What it does is it takes a Raspberry Pi disk image, or any sort of disk image really, and it writes it, the raw blocks, to an SD card for use in a Raspberry Pi, or whatever it is that you need a disk for. It fixes a bug that the previous version had that made it not compatible with the current version, and adds a couple new features. All this stuff is available at ivanx.com. Okay, now, the last thing that I wanted to spend my last minute and a half talking about is something that has nothing to do with Apple II, but it's actually sort of, I don't know, I didn't think of a new Apple II project, and I got into something else instead that was very surprising how deep a dive I did, and that is travel hacking. That's an airplane, that's a credit card, because those are the things that are involved when you're travel hacking. Basically, travel hacking is just like cracking a disk or writing code or figuring out how ProDOS does things or figuring out how to do things that are undocumented. It's about working these sort of complex and arcane point systems that credit cards offer and airlines offer and hotels offer. And basically, since last year, it's been probably about 14 months since I sort of started doing this, I've actually now, we're flying to Paris in business class. My partner Caroline flew to Bali in business class, all for free. And that's just really by understanding how a system works and getting to know the ins and outs and working it, just like anything we do here with Apple II. I am going to be giving a much more in-depth intro talk about how to do this in the little room over there immediately after this event. And if that interests you, then you know, hopefully it'll be fun. I get a little excited when I talk about it. And that's it. Thank you all for coming, old and new. It is like great to see you every year.
We are officially over our time. We want to give Jeremy Arlen a minute.
I can do it in 3 minutes.
All right, you got 3 minutes.
It's a simple thing. We're just going to create 4 GS programs from scratch.
Sounds quick.
So. Okay, so this is Xcode. Let's create a project. New project. Can't see.
Come in.
Awesome. New project. Apple CDS. Let's create a CDA. Classic desk accessory. CDA test. Give it a name. We're going to put it in this directory. And the template comes with the code. There's the template code for your CDA. Build and run. Up comes the GS. Go to the control panel here. CDA. There's your CDA. One CDA done. Let's go on. New project. I'm going to do this. Here we go. New project. Let's do a control panel. Control CDev test. Call it that. We're going to put it in this directory. Here's our CDev. Here's some code. H files, some resources. Build and run. Up comes the emulator. Here we go. Here's the control panel. There's our CDev. Open. There it is. Cool. Okay. CDev done. Next one.
That was 1 minute, 10 seconds.
NDA. Let's do a new desk accessory. We'll call it NDA test. We'll put it in this directory. Here's some code. This is your template code for a basic NDA. Some resources. Build and run. Up comes your emulator. There's my NDA. Hello world. Okay, last desktop application. New project. Desktop application in C. Next, desk test. Create it here. There we go. Here's some code. Some resources. Build and run. Up comes your GS. There's your desktop application. We can create a window. It's got an about. All this is made possible by Golden Gate by Kelvin Sherlock, available from GS. And I've built Xcode project templates around it and a build engine to support it. I don't have the project up. You can see it on GitHub, and I don't have a package yet for it, but it's coming in a week or 2. That's it.
Thank you. That was totally worth it.
That was 3 minutes.
That was the best 3 minutes I've ever seen.
Okay, Javier asked for very fast.
Let's do it.
Is Javier here?
I think he went up to dinner.
Said he is at some
Yeah,
place
he's
that
not
I'm not
getting
getting anything then.
He's getting fed.
Okay. So, lightning talks, yay or nay?
Yay!
That's it. Have fun.
Thank you.
Go have those things.
Wait, Jason's running out the done. What?
Hey, maniacs. I'm gonna sneak something right in before you don't even know it.
know. Don't walk out. Don't walk out later. No, it's okay. It's not that big. Don't worry. Here's the deal, people. You know how it says video games like this week, like video game time? Okay. How many people here know what multi-bowl is? Has anyone ever heard of what multi-bowl is? Okay. So here's the deal with multi-bowl. Multi-bowl is a hack of MAME that two game professors from NYU created. What they did was they hacked 230 different video games on like 8 different platforms, including arcade games, so that they became 2-player competitive games. And what happens is that you're given a constant roulette wheel of up to 2 minutes, or actually up to a few seconds, I think it's 30 or 40 seconds. So it'll put up Ms. Pac-Man, but it's a 2-man Ms. Pac-Man that you have to win at. And whoever wins 5 first wins. It is insane. It's like playing video game on acid. So they've never been able, they don't distribute the code because they're afraid to, but I'm not afraid to bring it around with me, so I have it. So you get to play it next couple, I think it's, what's it?
Game night is tomorrow night.
I think it's tomorrow night. It says video game. We weren't really publicizing it in terms of whatever, but it's this thing called multi-ball. If you look it up, you'll be like, oh, I'm playing that tomorrow. I guarantee you will blow your brain out.
Thank you.
No problem. Tell anybody you want to as the thing that's happening. Of course it's streaming. Of course. Over here.
Yeah, I think the next section starts, the workshop.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's cool.
Yeah, it is.
And you did great. Like you said, you were right on your time. I'm like still at
No, I only used 200 for my notes.
So I was wondering why you guys
It's actually built by the AP.
Ah, okay.
And then I also put one laptop that has the same design language built a year before this. That's also made by the AP calculator.
Yeah, that's
Was it okay?
Yeah.
No.
And only one person?
That was me. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
And that was amazing, but 3 minutes.
That was awesome.
Do you ever get the juicy? Oh.
I think the one guy just managed the lighting box, trying to teach us something. Yeah, you can't get it down fast enough.
Right.
Yeah, it's just, my goal there was, my goal there was just to say, this exists.
It exists.
There you go.
Yeah. It's a conversation.
It's like, if you want to more, I'll show you more.
I need to learn programming for next year's Hackfest. I got an idea and I want to implement it.
Start with that.
I actually have to wait for me. That's a problem. I've got a 2D and
It's graphical. You don't have to write anything like that.
So to keep
So if you wanted GS basic, that would be.
Well, but I've got a 2D, so.
We'll just turn on the power switch. And tomorrow morning, you got a presentation on Applesoft without line numbers. Full screen.
I definitely need to learn.
Full screen text editor. That's it. Cool. It's one of my favorite programs of all time. The little magazines, the hits that I made, and then a demonstration of a cross-platform Applesoft reading process. Kind of. Yeah.
Because
It's compared to all of the geniuses in here, being able to see out their asses and assemble out their other orifices. I am humbled that they do.
Yeah, because I just got my
Present company definitely included.
I just got my 2D disc just a couple days ago on the free giveaway program, so I don't really know how to.
well, yeah, sorry, let me.
Well, if you get hold of Scott, if he can't get it going, then
Oh, no, it turns on, and I get the TV on front, like, how to access this drives, here's, I know somebody's searching on PR and something.
Yeah, well, he can help you make sure that your drive control cards working fine, drives are working.
Plugged in?
Yeah, it's the 5 1/4 one, the one that was just the platinum.
So what happened was, like, I had it before, so.
Not the disc 2 drives, but the 5 1/4.
Run, but then it couldn't actually do the action.
It's fully loaded, I just have no idea.
Yeah,
So you turn it on and
I found that line endings are
Drive lights
on. If I do something with a line ending, it seems to
Drive lights
sends
on.
out if I use the
No,
correct
it's
line
cycle
ending.
the drives.
Do you know what's not?
I've just basically taken everything from my world and just.
Fixes, right?
One patch gets you.
Yeah.
So that's why there's foils.
Well, I don't know, maybe you guys maybe one of you guys
Just-
didn't stop by, you know.
Does it just appear like a little closed square bracket and then flashing cursor?
Well, no, I just see how.
And it just sits there.
I mean, I can take control reset and get a basic prompt, but.
Maybe two words.
I have an image, but it's on my floppy image, and I just got a bunch of.
Yeah,
it's a second.
it's not-
Copy it on my
It's not certain, it's certain
I don't know.
Well, would you be interested in playtesting my HackFest entry?
That was like the one thing I missed out on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, maybe one of you guys could look at it after, because I was interested in learning how to make my own floppy sleeves.
Unfortunately, I can't from going out.
Really what I'm doing now is
Oh, are you getting that scanner?
Yeah, I'm on scan.
Oh, fantastic, let me know when you have it, and I'll bring my boxes.
I'd wait till it's a little more fleshed out.
Okay.
Sure.
It's not a lot of, I just gotta put up my credit card.
So he's the one to give it to.
So I'm the one that gives, I'm buying it, and on my credit
Buy
card.
it.
Yeah.
All right, let's go do this. Let's go check this out.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's.
Yeah, let me know when you guys have it, I'll bring my box.
It's not repetitive stress. Yeah.
Ooh, also.
So Andy is your man. And you find him tonight.
I tried several different ways to make it so that you had eyes that you could open and close.
Yeah.
And then screw it, I'm just gonna make you a container that you could open and close that you're carrying.
Yeah, no, I had that, my thinking, the idea is you have your nose is maybe a visible scenery. That's the
Yeah.
first one outside.
Yeah, and I've, but I figured out the proper way to do it. Every person has eyes, and then there's a property, they created basically a boolean is eyes open versus eyes closed. Certain things happen if your eyes are open, right? You know, or you get a different message. Look, you know, your eyes are closed. You know, that kind of thing.
Let's see.
So that's the solution that I came up with. Is actually and actions. Make that up.
I remember.
Let me just show you how it goes. So here's like the default, put star in small round recess. You can put anything into a small round, it will fit. But then you can say put like a coin in a small round recess, right? What it does is it goes through the table, tries to find exact match, and then it can't find an exact match. It goes through.